Free speech is a hot topic these days, and American colleges and universities are often ground zero for the debate over debate. And now the Trump administration is cracking down on some of the nation's top universities, threatening to withhold money for no greater reason than the perception that they're too, quote, woke. Our next guest knows a little bit about universities and administration. He is the president of Princeton and the author of the new book, Terms of Respect: How Colleges Get Free Speech Right. And he will be appearing at a free speech this Saturday at the University of Chicago as part of the Chicago Humanities Festival. Welcome, Christopher Eisgruber, the president of Princeton University. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you, Paris. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And we'll welcome you here to Chicago in just a few days. So your book kind of dispels this notion that there is a crisis of free speech on college campuses. Explain that for us.
Yeah, the argument of terms of respect is that there's a lot of terrific speech going on at college campuses. It's true that there have been some events where things have gone wrong. You expect that when there's a lot of controversy on college campuses. But overall, the story is good. There are ways that colleges can do better, but they are places that we should be proud of.
And you reference an instance in 2015. There was a group called the Black Justice League. They marched into your office to demand Woodrow Wilson's name be removed from one of your colleges because he was allegedly racist. How did that conflict play out?
Well, what we did was to set up committees in response to the protest that took place to look at Woodrow Wilson's legacy. We decided in the first instance actually to keep the name on the School of Public and International Affairs after a discussion that raised a lot of important issues both for our campus and our country. A few years later, the Board of Trustees and I decided, after continued discussions on the campus and in the wake of the George Floyd murder and the protests that followed that we would actually take the name off. It's a very controversial set of events. People have different views about it, but I think one thing that's important about that controversy and others was those were instances of free speech. It can be uncomfortable for people, but uncomfortable speech on college campuses is important.
But one might argue that Woodrow Wilson, whatever his flaws were, was a very consequential president and a part of the Princeton University story. So what about the critics that said, why are we canceling someone who has been so consequential?
No doubt he was really consequential and important and made very important contributions to our country and to this university. But that's different from the question of exactly how you remember him. The judgment that our Board of Trustees made and that I agreed with was that given that Woodrow Wilson actually took the country backward on the critical issue of race by resegregating the federal service, he was the wrong person to be holding out as exemplary of what a public statesman should be. But let's be clear about this. His name remains on our campus. We still call the highest award that we give to undergraduate alumni of Princeton the Woodrow Wilson Award. His name is inscribed on the front of the campus. You can recognize history's complexities and say, look, Woodrow Wilson did make these contributions. We'll honor those, but there were also things that were really wrong. And that's the kind of conversation we should have on college campuses.
Absolutely. And these are the conversations that sometimes lead to protests, like some of the footage we just saw. You write in your book also that this notion that today's student is too woke, too fragile, they'd rather cancel speech that they don't like rather than debate it. That's not necessarily true, is it?
It's not true. I think, we have our students today, much like students in the past, want to get exposure to different views from their own. They are bold about taking on difficult issues of political justice, including ones like the issue about Woodrow Wilson's name that we just discussed. Right now in our country, it's hard for all of us to talk constructively about topics about which we disagree. We're a very polarized country, but we have to be able to do that. And I think our students and college campuses more generally lean into that project.
And you say in terms of allowing free speech on campus and debate and protest, you follow the Chicago model from the University of Chicago. Explain what that is.
Yeah, the University of Chicago, with leadership from Jeff Stone, a professor there, among others, and Bob Zimmer, who was president at the time, created these principles on free speech to guide college campuses. Those principles pretty much follow the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. What they say is, look, in general, the remedy for speech, if it's wrong or if it's immoral, if it's offensive to people, is not for there to be censorship by the university. It's for there to be more speech that gets to the truth and that improves the quality of discussion and understanding. We think that's correct. You also have to, at the same time, be taking measures to make sure that people can go about their studies, to make sure that they're not violating what are called time, place, and manner rules about how speech gets made. But you've got to allow for even really uncomfortable ideas to be discussed on college campuses. Those are the Chicago principles, and we embrace them at Princeton, too.
And politics right now is very uncomfortable all across the country, but especially on college campuses. And as you well know, the Trump administration purportedly struck a deal with Harvard where the university would pay them $500 million and then they would get restored federal grant funding. We really don't know the specifics, but the administration has proposed a compact with actually 9 top universities about having access to federal funding in exchange for following administration priorities on anti-DEI, anti-so-called woke, allowing more conservative principles on campus. What are your concerns with what's happening right now between Trump and higher education?
Well, I have 2 basic concerns. One is that support for sponsored research should be allocated on the basis of the quality of research projects, not on the basis of fidelity to a particular political agenda, whether it's this administration or some other administration's agenda. The American people have been served well by a 70-year-long compact between our government and universities where sponsored research funding in the interest for research in the interest of the American people that betters our health, our prosperity, and our security is allocated on the basis of research merit, not on the basis of political considerations. So I think it's a mistake to depart from that. And I think it's a mistake to have the government of our country dictating what kinds of viewpoints will or will not be represented on college campuses. America has flourished because of a tradition of academic freedom and free speech, and we should continue to respect that.
Has the government specifically held up funding for Princeton? And what would you do in the instance that this conflict arises?
Well, we had some grants suspended last spring, what the government described as about $200 million in grants. About half of them were restored over the summer. What I have said consistently about this is, on the one hand, we want to be able to work with the government in order to be able to continue to produce the research that benefits the American people. And I'm happy to work with the Trump administration and with others to do that. On the other hand, we're also going to protect the academic freedom that is critical to the quality of this university, the University of Chicago and Northwestern, and every other great research university. And that means protecting the ability of universities to decide what they teach, how they teach, what kinds of research that they do, whom they hire, and whom they admit as students.
And obviously, this is a debate playing out in college boardrooms across the country in terms of how to handle this. I also want to ask you, in terms of free speech, there was no issue more contentious over the last couple of years than the war in Israel and Gaza, protests here in Chicago on campus, protests all across the country. Where do you fall in terms of what kind of protest or speech will be allowed by both professors and by students if they have very strong opinions on this conflict?
Well, Paris, this is a place where the Chicago principles that we discussed a few moments ago are really helpful, because what they say is we should not be censoring the speech, the slogans, what it is that people say in protests that take place. The remedy for bad speech is more speech. If there's offensive speech, people should respond to it and elevate the quality of speech. On the other hand, if people start breaking time, place, and manner rules, for example, by trying to take over buildings or by pitching tents where they are not allowed to pitch tents, then you have to enforce those rules. And that's exactly what we did on the Princeton campus. We let people speak up, even when they were saying very controversial things that made folks uncomfortable. But if people broke rules, and some did, we then applied our rules very quickly. We enforced them if necessary. We made arrests. It's a hard thing to do, but that's what you have to do in order to maintain the kind of fora on college campuses where real speech and real discussion can take place.
That's 10 a.m. on Saturday at the University of Chicago Noyes Hall. Be a very interesting speech. Thanks for speaking with us.
Terrific, Paris. I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Us as well. Take care.